Right, members, I think we can start the second session now. Ms. Chen Yun Han, first round, 5 minutes. Thank you, Chairman. In fact, I have been following up on the development of Kai-Tak for 20 years, and concerning the Kai-Tak MPSC, departments have been doing the planning, and at that time, some said that the MPSC was too large in scale, but then there was support by 3 district councils, and so that last time I also said that I supported the project, but then today this item has been withdrawn from the agenda, and some have asked me why this item cannot be discussed today, although it has gone through PWSC already. Some ask me whether Kai-Tak MPSC will come back to FC only a year later. The FTU did raise some concerns about arrangements for the workers, and the government tried to allay our concerns, and as a result, we gave our support. So the costs will escalate because of the putting back of this project. Chairman, I'm really worried. There are a lot of government projects going on, and costs keep going up. For example, West Kowloon, costs have gone up substantially. So I'm worried about the development. When a lot of PRH blocks had to be built, we had the short piling incident. So I want to say that I support the project, but then I want to make sure that the use of public money is rigorously monitored. Permanent Secretary. Now, of course, I hope that we can obtain funding approval as early as possible. And we, of course, do not want to block the other funding items. But then there are certain things that are really beyond our control. And then as to whether we will be doing a sloppy job in respect of our construction works. I want to say that we have a dedicated team of engineers to make sure that the works are properly carried out. Ms. Chen, so concerning the Kai-Tak MPSC, it finally went through PWSC. So when will this project come back to FC? Ms. Chen, because it's still within your 5 minutes, I let you ask your question, but then this is really not the matter before us today. Chairman, we will look at which funding applications should be dealt with more urgently before the summer recess. Chairman, because this item, this Kai-Tak item has been withdrawn, and I'm concerned. The item has gone through the relevant panel and a PWSC. I understand why the administration has made such a decision, but then we really look forward to seeing that item as early as possible. And then I think the Permanent Secretary failed to give me a satisfactory reply. So the cost has shot up by $8.7 billion. So is it that when a contractor wants a larger sum of money, you will give him the amount that he wants? Is there proper monitoring? Mr. Sin Chong Kai. At the PWSC meeting last week, the government told us that it had gone out to tender and then it put the funding proposal before PWSC. So in this case, again, the administration has already done the tendering work. So maybe and then the costs have gone up. Now, in fact, if you tender the works first and then come to Finance Committee, there are disadvantages to this approach. And the second approach is to ask us for funding and then go out to tender. And I think both options have their merits and demerits. So can I ask you the criteria for adopting either of the options? Now, in fact, this question has been asked by many members, and the two permanent secretaries have given replies. Do you want to repeat? 1 minute. 19 GB, we went to LegCo for funding before tendering. And Mr. Sin, the tender prices were high, and so we have to come back to FC for further funding. In fact, it really depends on the urgency of the works project. If it's an urgent project, then we'll tender the project first and then try to secure funding approval from LegCo. Lee Chuk Yan, second round, 4 minutes, but he's not here. Gary Fan, second round, 4 minutes. Thank you, Chairman. Whenever we talk about the XRL project, the pro-establishment members feel worried. And then I want to refer to para 16 of the paper. And concerning the growth in a volume of vehicles, that would be 6% instead of 1%. And then it is said that there will be more border crossing points. So is it that you really need to complete this project by the end of 2018? For Lien Tang, Hung Yun Wai, BCF, this is to tie in with Northeast anti-development, but then for Ping Chair development, it has to be deferred, and then Fanling North, there are lots of controversies. So I want to ask the administration whether it has assessed the economic effectiveness of this BCF again. In the past years, there were many infrastructural projects going on at the same time, and there was a competition for manpower, and costs went up, and also the quality of works suffered because the works had to be carried out very quickly and hastily. So will you consider putting the putting the project a bit backward? I want to say that between 2003 and 2013, for cross-border people movement, there was an increase of 80%, then vehicles 20%. And in fact, I think I've already given this answer. Now for this BCF is going to link up to the eastern part of Shenzhen. In fact, it's going to be a very convenient facility for use by the residents. Mr. Gary Fan said that this has to do with Northeast NT. This is not the case. This is a BCF, and I want to add one point. Now concerning the connecting road under 19GB, be. It's going to be a very good infrastructural item in Northeast NT for use by cross-border travelers as well as by the local residents. Mr. Gary Fan, but then you're trying to beat the 2018 deadline, and as a result, the contractor will have to try to catch up and try to so there will be additional costs to be incurred. How much are we talking about? And if you amend the works timetable, then we won't have to incur such extra expenditure.
Yep.
Well, for our contract, now the target completion date is end of 2018, so there's no question of recovery of delay. No follow-up question. Next. Assembly Lau. Second round, 4 minutes. Can the Permanent Secretary tell us more clearly? Many members, including myself, are saying that because there are too many projects, so that's why the construction cost has gone up and there is not enough manpower. And people are also saying that we should import workers. However, Mr. Low Wai Kwok said that there are not enough projects and some workers are made redundant. So what is the truth? Permanent Secretary, I said just now that we have to plan for the long term. In the coming 5 to 10 years, the number of projects would be on the high side, and it's about $200 billion. And some projects are delayed because now we need longer time for approval. I hope this won't last for long. Well, at the PWSC meeting 2 days ago, we approved 6 projects in one go. But we've heard that there are not enough workers. And many members in the business sector are saying that we should import overseas workers. So that's why many projects are prolonged. So there's no redundancy of workers. Well, I think the Permanent Secretary is not working for the Labour and Welfare Bureau, but he should know about the construction sector. I think Mr. Low has mentioned the figures. In 2013 to 14, originally the project amount was $50.4 billion, and only $3.6 billion were approved. I think she's talking about 2013 to 14, and now we are talking about 2014 to 15. Yes, you're right. So there were less projects approved, so that would have an impact on the construction industry. As to whether workers were made redundant, I don't have the figures. Yes, there are less projects starting. However, we see a lot of vacant sites. If you look at XRL, they're always saying that there's a shortage of manpower. Other projects are also complaining. So if we approve 20 to 30 projects, you still wouldn't have enough workers. So Professor Chen has left, and he said that there is a limitation. You won't start too many projects. Do you know what the limitation is? Permanent Secretary. I don't think I can answer on behalf of the Secretary. I don't know what he's talking about. You don't know what he's talking about? I think he's talking about the deployment of internal resources. And we would have to look at the capacity of the construction industry. So now you are overloading the construction industry, right? Many members have asked you this question. That's why we are so worried, and that's why the price has gone up. And we see so many vacant sites. Now it's about $200 billion. And when it's just about 90% of the new airport projects. So I don't believe that Hong Kong's construction industry does not have that capacity. Mr. Wong Yuk-man, 4 minutes. Chairman, well, for this Permanent Secretary for Development, when he speaks, he likes to take people down the garden path. Maybe he's bullying us. He thinks we are not professional. Well, at the PAC meeting, we were talking about the air control system of the Civil Aviation Department, and he was making use of all those technical terms and took us down the garden path. So we don't know about all these, and we approve the funding because we trust you. But now we find that you are not trustworthy. It's very simple. Well, I don't want to repeat the questions asked at the PWSC. You explain to us why there's a cost overrun. Of course, you always have reasons. But as long as you have reasons, you don't have to bear the responsibility. Then it has nothing to do with you. It's pretty strange. In 2012, underground investigation delayed and there were more faults found. So that's why cost has overrun by 50%. You just told us the facts, but who should shoulder the responsibility? And for the pro-establishment camp, you are not holding them responsible. You just want us to approve the funding. What logic is that? Now, you have to be careful. You have to tell us that next time you won't make this mistake again, and you have to promise us you are not coming back for more money. And Mr. Hon, you say that you cannot guarantee that. Then why should I approve the funding for you? Do you understand? This is very simple. How complicated can it be? It has nothing to do with you. It's about the land. So it's the same as the XLL. Well, the engineers and the CEO didn't have to shoulder responsibilities. And the CEO even got $21 million when he left, and that's no penalty. So how can Hong Kong people be satisfied? Now, I'm just talking about common sense. I'm not as professional as you are. You are all engineers. I don't know about engineering, but I'm just talking about common sense. Now, there is such a significant cost overrun. You have told us that there are problems, but who should shoulder the responsibility? At least you should tell me whose responsibility it is. Then you won't make the mistake again. Now, we are crying foul. And Mr. Lo Wai Kwok said that now let's talk about FC procedures. I think that's just a waste of time. You are an engineer. Engineers should talk about professional things. You should explain to us whether this cost overrun is reasonable. Should they shoulder the responsibility? We shouldn't rush to give them money, and they don't have to bear the responsibility. They just come for money. You are repeating yourself, Mr. Wong. I am just stressing, and I want people watching the TV to know that this government is unacceptable. In September 2008, you announced with the Shenzhen government that a study will be carried out on the possible construction of the Liantang Hangyuan YBCP. So how come you don't give us the data? How about the minutes of your meetings with the Shenzhen Planning Department? What's the question, Chairman? The first question. Now, you talk to the Shenzhen Planning Department. Show me your meeting minutes. His time is up. You just jot down the questions, and next time it presses the button, you can answer the questions. Ms. Ann Chang? Well, about cost overrun, the pro-establishment camp has already talked to the FS and the secretary. Well, in front of the TV, you shout so loudly. That doesn't mean you can solve the problem. Well, what do you want the government to change? And how can you force the government to reform? Under the present system, no matter whether it's civil servants or accountable officials, they just work in accordance with the system. And if you say that, well, this system is problematic, then we should ask them to change the system. But can that be changed by one permanent secretary or one secretary? And which bureau should be responsible for that? Or it should be the FS that's changing it. Now, because all the bureaus are adopting the same system, so where does the problem lie? You should put forward more constructive opinions. How are we going to change it? How are we going to remedy the situation? Some members asked whether you will come back for more money. And what that is like, you are treating us like ATM. Can you give us a promise? I think it's difficult for the permanent secretary to give you the undertaking. Even if he says yes, can he do that? How can he guarantee? So if he comes back for more money, do you want him to foot the bill instead? Chairman, I've been listening to members' questions, and there are only 3 major questions. So please jot this down. First, for your tendering procedures, I think there are problems. Well, whether you come here first and then you do the tendering or vice versa, you should look at the actual situation. Now, if you want a $5 billion project, then do it within $5 billion. And how come now you want $8 billion? Now, if it's a private company, the company would have gone bankrupt. Even though our treasury still has money in it, however, the FS says that each year only about $80 billion will be spent on infrastructure works. Now you are overspending. So this is a major problem. How can this problem be avoided? I just give you that amount of money and you should spend within that amount. And secondly, about your contracts, the contractor system. I think there is a problem with the contracting system. The contractor has been awarded a contract. I think he should cover all the costs. If a machine has broken down because of heavy rain, then it's his responsibility. And the third question is, just now the permanent secretary said that you have engineers monitoring the situation. They are professionals. Now, what kind of professionals that you lack? You need an auditor. You should audit the project. That is very important. Members do not trust you. Why? Because it's your fault, and now you come to ask us for help. Can you set up an independent audit committee? Any budget overrun should be audited by an independent committee. Now the PAC can only look at government matters, procedural matters. But as to whether you should spend that amount of money, the PAC also faces certain problems. I have also talked to the government about this, and some NGOs are now not audited. Well, anyway, I'm going too far, and I would like to ask Ms. Elizabeth Chair, Mr. Ma Fong Kwok. The government wants to get the BCP project approved as soon as possible, and that's why the Kai-Tak Sports Complex has been withdrawn. I think that's regrettable, but I told the press yesterday that I understand why the government is doing this. I hope the government can come back as soon as possible with the Kai-Tak Multipurpose Sports Complex. Otherwise, this will be unfair to the sports sector. Now the government is applying for funding for the Lian Tong BCP. I have looked at the paper number 33, and you are saying that there will be an increase of $8.7 billion. And there are several reasons. First, the watch price has gone up. Yes, I understand that. I'm not a member of the PWSC, so I want to ask the government these questions. You say that the ground condition of the tunnel site is very poor. I don't understand, because if you want to build a tunnel, you should have done a thorough site investigation first. But in paper 14, you say that in 2011 you conducted a site investigation, and because there were problems and also the weather was poor, so that's why the progress was affected. So the site investigation was not completed. How come you call for tender at that time? And how did you estimate the amount then? And you expect that the complicated ground condition will be quite extensive. So that's why it has slowed down the project. And why is that? I think before a project, you should carry out a thorough site investigation and then you call for tender. Otherwise, you should put the risk on the contractor. And then under D22D, increase in provision for price adjustment. And C, tenderer's perception on higher risk associated with construction constraints. How should we understand this? Now you know the situation better. So why do you have to increase this amount? That is tenderer's perception on high risk associated with construction constraints. I'll ask Mr. Cheng to give you details. As for the tunnel works, when we did the estimation, we had conducted a detailed site investigation. We spent quite a handsome amount of money. But the tunnel situation was quite complicated and the fault was longer than expected. So that's why the price went up. As for tenderer's perception on higher risks associated with construction constraints, now we have awarded 3 contracts. And how come the price was higher than expected? Well, after analyzing it, we found that the tenderers thought that under such circumstances, that is near the border at such a remote place in the northeast NT, they had to construct a tunnel and a bridge. Under such circumstances, they thought that there were higher risks in terms of price, and it's very difficult to find subcontractors. It would also be more difficult to secure workers. So that's why they have factored this in their price. We looked at the price and we found it was higher, and we have analyzed, and this was found to be the reason. They put all the factors in the price. So all these risks are reflected in the price, and we don't have to pay anything extra. Mr. Lee Cheuk-yen, 4 minutes. I think you have to answer Ann Jiang's questions. She said that if this happens to a private company, heads would be rolling. So Now this happens in the government. Nobody has to shoulder the responsibility. I think you have to answer Ms. Chiang's question. Permanent Secretary. Yes, I heard the question about responsibilities. Ms. Chiang, it's not the time for you to speak. Permanent Secretary. Okay, then I'll ask this question. Who's going to shoulder the responsibility? Well, there are several factors. I think Mr. Cheng has explained to you. That is first about estimation. Second, about the tunnel, the ground condition. As to whether someone should be held responsible, it is about a professional judgment. And we have to find out whether this is a mistake made by a professional person. Even if you are an engineer, you don't know everything. So has he done his best? That is more important.
The members actually refer to the cost overrun and whether anyone would be held accountable for it. Did you actually consider whether anyone would be held accountable? Is there any mechanism in place to hold anyone responsible, or would no one be held accountable until the later phases? So far, we have not seen any public officers or professional officers who need to be held accountable. In terms of the sedimentation, there should be an even distribution. Scientifically speaking, you can see a very even distribution of the underground conditions. So why is this still happening? Why couldn't you grasp a clear distribution of the sedimentation? Was it an error on the professional's part? Please try to use Chinese as much as possible. Yes, because I had my education in English, but let's try to stick with Chinese. The biggest challenge with tunneling works is that you cannot be sure about the ground conditions until the moment you begin. Certain tunneling works were conducted and 1.5% of the total cost was reserved. And the actual amount we set aside actually exceeded the requirement. And certain lateral investigation was done, and some dissatisfactory fragments were detected. Mr. Lee Cheuk-yan, please continue. You already overestimated the cost required, but yet you still have to come back for more money. He added another 50 on top, but there's still a gap because of the fragments. Mr. Alan Leung, second round, 4 minutes, please. Chairman. Dr. Chen Ka-keung, Professor Chen Ka-keung, is a politically accountable officer, but he has dodged his duty and he's already left. So we have to rely on the Permanent Secretary. We can learn from the case of the XRL project. At that time, we asked why you couldn't save $30 billion by relocating the XRL station to Kam Sheung Road. And for this project, at that time, if the problem could not be solved, the railway can never reach full speed. At that time, Mr. Lau Kong-wah said we shouldn't ask any more questions because the government cannot give an answer anyway, and as such, it was approved. So I hope the public understand that we approved 6 items at the PWSC this Wednesday. So it's clear that we are not trying to stand in the way of the government for the sake of it. We are attacked by CY Leung that we are opposing everything. And I think everyone can see very clearly from the lesson of the XRL project. So have you done well enough in your financial risk assessment? And I'd like to see why you have bypassed the PWSC when there are still a lot of unresolved questions at the subcommittee. And it is very different from the other isolated case on the 28th of April 2000, Permanent Secretary. For the Liantang Herniu White Boundary Control Point projects, we already talked about the urgency. So what I want to reiterate is that this project was passed in July 2012. And for item 19GB, we have tried to extend the validity periods of the 6 contracts twice, and they would be up by July this year. Of course, we can go back to the BWIC before coming to the Finance Committee. We did consider this option, but since the PWSC has a lot of items to be discussed in light of the urgency, we have taken the liberty to recommend approving this project with at the Finance Committee. For the case you mentioned in the year 2000, it was also an urgent case. In terms of financial control, is there any room for improvement? We should be positive and if we need any extra funds after granting the projects, we might have to conduct tendering before coming for approval. But of course, this approach has its pros and cons, as discussed with a lot of members today. I understand a lot of members are very professional and they are trying to do their jobs well. Whether or not this approach can solve all the problems, it's still an uncertainty throughout the tendering process. We still face a lot of uncertainties. If we can estimate the time required before it's approved by PWSC or FC, then it would be better. But in some cases, it's very difficult to estimate the timelines when we open the tenders. So sometimes there are a lot of problems. For example, sometimes we got the prices right, but we don't know how long we have to wait. Mr. Leung Kwok-hong, second round, 4 minutes. So who has to be held accountable? If I don't speak out, then I will be held responsible. I think Ming Pao is the real culprit. They came up with this diagram. For 9 major infrastructure projects, the discrepancy between the actual cost and the expected cost amount to over $100 billion. So they are the culprits because they detected the problem. Mr. Low Ai Kwok lied. You said it's not true that there's a lack. There would be a lack of jobs. So please don't lie. They do have jobs. The government needs a lot of manpower. and they have a mandatory window replacement scheme and so on. What are you actually talking about? You should go out and see what's happening out there. Would you dare talking with the construction workers? You are not being realistic. If we indeed need to introduce labor as you mentioned, then what we are proposing actually helps you. You're stupid. This is derogatory. You are stupid. Let's, Chairman, please make a verdict. It's a piece of furniture. You're a pig. So you are accusing others of filibustering, and you are. I think he's asking me to go to hell. This is derogatory. You are accusing others of filibustering and driving chaos in Hong Kong. You should go to hell. Are you a legislator? You can refer to the rules of procedure. You're stupid. What you said was already derogatory. No, I was only asking him to go to hell. Well, you should just eat plastics, and I hate this type of person. And now we have a huge budget overrun, and people are already complaining. You should meet the labor unions. Are you an engineer? You have to tell me instead of telling him. You shouldn't have a conversation between yourselves. We have a huge budget overrun. Is there any CFO who can still keep their job despite huge losses and huge project delays? Can you give me an example in any private institutes? We are treated as ATMs for the password of this so-called ATM machine is that the reality is that they are rubber stamps. Mr. Albert Chan. Mr. Leung Kwok-hong, it's Mr. Albert Chan's turn. I can give him a minute to finish. It's my turn, not yours. Chairman, I sympathize with the government officials here today. I think they should not be held responsible for the overrun. The main culprit is C.Y. Leung and Mr. 689. C.Y. Leung and John Chang. They are the real culprits. When the 10 infrastructure works were introduced, they did not consider the eventual cost burden. And if you consider it from a holistic point of view, if they take place simultaneously, then we will see problems. And even with signs of problems, C.Y. Leung still chose to do nothing. He should have done something earlier after he came on board, but he's only making the problem worse. And he was just ignoring the reality, and he was even trying to do more. I've been telling the administration, I've been asking various bureaus to monitor the projects. You should see whether Hong Kong's labor and workforce can support all these infrastructure projects. You have to come up with the math, and they are ignoring the increase in construction costs. The costs have been dropping since last year. So in the PWSC meeting 2 days ago, I asked the government about the construction costs, and the costs have actually been decreasing since 2012. The original expected rise was 6%, but the actual rise was only 4.9%. So this is good news. And 2 years later, the estimates might go down instead of go up. But I understand that as civil servants, you have to deal with the contractors and you have to set aside a sum of money before you sign the contracts. But for the Lintang BCP, it's not just about budget overrun. I think a lot of members of the public, including People Power, are very skeptical with this entire Lintang BCP project and whether or not it benefits Hong Kong. It should be suspended. We hope that you could not grant those contracts. You might have lost some money. You might have lost some public money, but it's better to cut losses sooner than later. You shouldn't. You should think about the big picture. The purpose of the Lintang BCP is to help the Hong Kong economy, but now Hong Kong is turned into a backyard of mainland China, and it's becoming a breeding ground for crimes, and it's a special sanctuary for black money. And even if you lose money in this Lintang BCP project, it's good news for Hong Kong people. Some people say that by saving $3,000 a month, you can buy a flat. They are saying that if you stop visiting Japan, then you can save some money. The reality is that some people don't even have money for lunch. These rich people completely ignore the reality of Hong Kong. It's the same for those with power. Even with budget overruns, they are trying to approve the projects, and they would grant endless amounts of money to prove their loyalty. And these people are merely thinking for themselves. Mr. Gary Chen, 5 minutes, please, first round. Chairman. Some members were not practicing restraints, and they were rather derogatory with their words, and I regret that. I think I agree with the first part of what Mr. Albert Chen said with regards to budget overruns. With rising wages, rising construction costs, and engineering difficulties, these are some of the main issues. Some members are strongly opposed to these projects, and I think the main reasons are all political. No matter the agenda or projects, as long as the mainland is involved, some members would immediately be on the defensive, and they have a fixed stance already. Some members accuse our government officials of being stupid. I think this is highly offensive. They accuse our government officials of being of not being pragmatic. I think some legislative council members should be accused instead, and they cannot even tell the difference between average daily wage and the average increase in wages. And some people relate this project with development in Northwestern Territory. It shows that they didn't even read the paper. I'm not sure how many members actually visited Liantang and Heng Yun Wai or the Chok Yun village, I did visit the village quite a few times, and myself and the director actually met the villagers on separate occasions. And with so many new boundary control points, we will have the XRL and the third runway, and they're saying that we don't need so many BCPs. My response would be that in Shuttlecock, there is frequent congestion for both vehicles and people, and we often have to deal with the issue of cross-boundary children, and a lot of members feel that we need to do something. But for this project, one important purpose is to help cross-boundary students. And suddenly, those members forgot about it altogether. You should go to Shuttlecock and look at the number of cross-boundary students we have every day, and you should look at the congestion of trucks as well.
And also, Chairman, many of the BCFs are in the western part of the territory, and in the eastern part of the territory there are only some really substandard BCFs. So we really need this new BCF. In fact, all the information is in the paper, but our colleagues do not read council papers. So perhaps our officials can tell us the benefits of having this new BCF, the amount of travelers movement, and so on and so forth. Chairman, from 2003 to 2013, the daily number of travelers increased by 80%, from 316,000 to 570,000. But then last year, during the winter solstice and the Christmas, New Year holidays, in fact, many people crossed the border, and over 100,000 people use the Shenzhen Bay BCF. So this new BCF will be linked up to the eastern part of Shenzhen. And then concerning cross-boundary students, we do have some figures. And it's now 3 times the number we had 5 times ago. 0910. About 8,000 students, and then 1415, about 24,900. So 3 times the number we had 5 years ago. Mr. Wu Chi-wai. Thank you, Chairman. In my first round, Mr. Horn said that the commissioning date for the commissioning date of end 2018, there were high risks. So can Mr. Horn tell us about the nature of the risks, and how can you make sure that the project can be completed by the end of 2018 as scheduled? And so what are the risk factors? And what if the risks are more than you have expected, then will you have to come back to us for further funding? At the PWSC, many members asked this question. For this BCF, we're talking about leaving Hong Kong from the east and coming into Hong Kong from the east. In fact, the economic development in the eastern part of Guangdong has changed quite significantly in the past decade. And so will that have an impact on the use of the Liantang Heng Yun Wai BCF? Have you done another assessment? Or is it that you're still using the information available in 2008 as the basis for planning? Mr. Horn. Chairman, as I've said, under the contract, the works should be completed by the end of 2018. I talked about very high risks. Let's say if there's a lot of rainfall, or if more time is needed for the tunneling works, then we won't be able to complete the works by the end of 2018. As you know, many of the works have just started. We don't know whether they can be completed by the end of 2018. If necessary, the works period may have to be extended. And then the APE. Whether we've reserved enough contingency fees. Now, I want to say that we've set aside 10% of the APE as contingency fees. So, judging from the present situation, we should be able to finish the project within this budget. But of course, no one can be 100% sure. And then the development of the eastern part of Guangdong. From 01 to 05 for Guangdong East, the annual growth in GDP was about 7 to 8%. But for the entire PRD, it was 15%. But from 09 to 13, the situation reversed. 12% for Guangdong East and 10% for PRD as a whole. So we can see that, in fact, the development of Guangdong East has accelerated. Ms. N. Zhang, second round. Mr. Loy Kwok, Chairman, when Mr. Leung Kwok-hong spoke, he made insulting remarks against me. I asked the chairman to give a ruling. The chairman did not. It doesn't matter, but I want to say that those insulting remarks and adjectives are an insult to me as well as to the engineering sector. And then I want to say that, in fact, last week there were media reports on engineering firms making staff redundant. In fact, one engineering company made 200 staff members redundant because of filibustering. In fact, because of political bickering, there has been delay in many projects, and as a result we have a bunching up of projects, and there's a shortage of labor. Chairman, as you are aware, for major infrastructural projects, one stage follows another. We have preliminary design, feasibility studies, tendering, construction works, and then testing, and then commissioning, and then maintenance. So I want to say that if new projects can't commence, then those engineering staff responsible for advanced works will be affected most. And that's why I have said that, in fact, there are some who have lots of work to do, and there are some who have no work to do. In fact, the media have given prominent coverage about this situation. For last year, the FC only approved a total of $3.6 billion worth of projects, but previously it was 90 billion or over 160 billion. And in fact, even during the SARS period, $22 billion worth of projects were approved. Then for capital works projects, 14th of April, in reply to a question raised by Mr. Abraham Shak, Mr. Paul Chen said that in the year 14-15, contracts approved for capital works projects totaled 18. Total amount 18.2 billion. And then the year before, 57 projects, 5.1 billion, and then in the previous year, a larger amount. And so because of filibustering, the number of newly approved projects has decreased year after year. And if the situation continues, the situation will be disastrous. In 2003, the unemployment rate in the construction sector was 19%. Over 17,000 people were jobless. And so we really hope that filibustering members can stop filibustering, or else the situation can become very bad. And in fact, on the 8th of March, the Alliance staged an anti-filibustering protest. Many employees' livelihood are affected, their families are also affected, and Hong Kong's economic development will also slow down as a result. Ms. N. Chang, second round, 4 minutes. Yes, Chairman. Mr. Lee Chak Yan asked whether N. Chang was trying to find out who should be held responsible. But I want to say that in the government machinery, very often decisions are made collectively. In fact, I raised 3 questions. Whether it should be, first of all, whether it should be tendering first, or whether the government should apply for funding approval first. According to Ms. Chair, there are pros and cons for both options. But I want to say that in this case, overspending is or cost overrun is very serious. So I hope that you can look at the 2 options again, compare them, and see which option has more merits and demerits. And then second, previously, contractors underwrote the project sums. Why is it that this is no longer the case? And do you think you should review the present arrangements? Because if the contractor doesn't need to underwrite the project sum, then very often it's difficult to decide who should bear certain responsibilities. And then my third question is this. Say if there is cost overrun, and the cost overrun is not 10% or 20%, it's 50% for this case, and then SCL 200% or 100%, and then XRL again cost overrun of 40 to 50%. So this is really a very serious problem, and I think there is some need to appoint an independent monitoring panel to study the accounts. And I hope that the administration can undertake to conduct a comprehensive review on the contracting out of projects, and there should be an independent monitoring panel to study in detail all cases of cost overrun. Permanent Secretary, I'll answer the second and third questions. Underwriting, I don't think this is really relevant to the project before us. And if you require the contractor to underwrite the project sum, the contractor or the bidders will all push up or increase the tender prices. And then for cost over or for projects which have cost overruns, we will look at the situation. We'll look at whether the mechanism can be improved. So is it that there is independent audit already? Chairman, for this project, I think I can say that the project cost was not well estimated. But then the estimate was made on the basis of certain data, and as a result the cost estimate was low, and in fact even when there was independent audit, no problems were discovered. Mr. Albert Chen, now I think it's unfair to say that the original estimate was not done properly. Now you're putting all the blame on the former officials, and they are no longer here. So perhaps you can give us a paper telling us what mistakes former officials made, leading to leading to a wrong estimate being made. So is it that you don't have to bear any responsibility? Is it that you don't have to be held accountable at all? You have been in these posts for a long time. So is it that all the blame should go to the former officials? And N. Chang suggested that there should be an independent monitoring panel for projects with cost overruns. I think she rarely makes such brilliant suggestions. But then, even if the government appoints a panel, the government may only appoint government-friendly people, and as a result, the panel may not be able to find out what the problems are. But then, of course, this is again about money, and you know that among 10 engineers, 9 may have very different views. But I think what is important is that there should be enhanced transparency so that accountability can be increased. Now officials are telling us that the mistakes were made by former officials, and one official said that the problems were caused by poor soil conditions. But I think the problem is that there are too many projects going on at the same time. Mr. Loy Kwok said that because of filibustering, 200 people lost their jobs. I think that what he said was nonsense. What he said was totally unprofessional. No, at that time, there was a shortage of workers, and as a result, labor costs went up. Did you advise that the projects should not all start and be carried out at the same time? Let's ask the Labour Department to give us a report on the employment situation in the construction sector. You know, pro-establishment members in the construction sector try to pull wool over people's eyes. They say that because of filibustering, many people lose their jobs. In fact, because of 689, because of pro-establishment members, many died, many committed suicide. You know, 6,000 people, elderly persons died before they could get RCHE places. So I'm really angry. These professionals are not telling the public the truth. They're trying to deceive Hong Kong people. Many Hong Kong people suffering because pro-establishment members have not fought for their interests. They only know how to defend the government. They only know how to side with the developers. So I want to ask the officials to provide evidence to convince us that all the mistakes were made by former officials. I didn't say that. You said that the former officials made the mistake. Now, when the estimates were done, I was the director, and so I need to shoulder ultimate responsibility, Chairman. Mr. Albert Ho. Chairman, so after the side investigation, officials knew that that there might be cost overrun, and so they did in fact already increase the project estimate by 50%. Yes, he said that when the estimated project cost was 1, they decided that they should reserve 1.5. So it seems that the soil conditions were extremely difficult. And they said that they did more boreholes to try to ascertain the ground conditions. So why is it that despite the fact that you've set aside an extra 50%, there is still this very serious cost overrun? So was it that the alignment proposed was wrong? In fact, it's important that we look at the alignment from Tuen Mun to Yuen Long along Castle Peak Road. We were told that, in fact, a railway could not be constructed. In fact, it could be constructed, but that was too expensive. The engineers said that the cost would be $60 billion. So many members of the public wanted that railway, but the government said no immediately because of the difficult ground and soil conditions, and so the railway would be extremely expensive. So I think there are two questions here.
Well, for professional responsibility, do you think you have underestimated the complexity, and that would mean a dereliction of duty because it's a professional duty? And also, as a decision maker, including the permanent secretary, if you see such a report, then you would know that there is a huge problem with its accuracy, and there is a big chance of cost overrun, but you still decided to do it. And now we have to foot the bill, which we don't think is worthwhile. This is a political responsibility. So is it a professional responsibility or a political responsibility, and is the alignment wrong? I'm asking a question. Can anyone answer me? Well, that's tunnel. During the tendering exercise, we talked about the percentage, 1.5%. So 1.5% was spent on investigation. And according to our technical guidance note number 24, that's already a reasonable amount. So professionally, they have followed the guideline, but they wanted to do more. They drilled horizontally. And normally, you would drill vertically. So if they drill horizontally, you could get more data, and it was discovered that there were more faults than expected. So actually, it was good that they had gotten such information beforehand. Mr. Chen Chi-Chun. Well, for the first round, I asked Professor Chen Ka-keung. He was not happy with his answers, and now he's left. So I will not make it difficult for the PS. He said that in 1997 there was such a case, And in the year 2000, it's the same. That is, the application were not passed by the ESC or PWSC, and then it was submitted to the FC. Yes, I know you have the power to do that, but I would like to reason with you. And just now, Ms. Ann Chang, yeah, I'm talking about the Development Bureau. Well, we won't trust you because if in the future you come back for more money, we won't ask you to foot the bill. And the XRL case, we also saw a similar situation. Nobody would vote for a project if we have to foot the bill if that's a cost overrun. We support a project, but it doesn't mean that we will support it forever. We won't become an ATM for you. So now we are discussing this. We have to make a decision as to whether we'll give you extra funding or do we want to abort the project. So Mr. Paul Chen should be here. Mr. Hon said he was the director then, so he should shoulder the responsibility. But should a more senior government official be held responsible? You are a new PS, and now you have to answer all the questions. You cannot tell us whether you will come back for more money. So it's very difficult for us to make a decision. We have considered adjourning the discussion of this item and wait for Paul Chen. Just now the PS said that now you have spent $760 million because of the delay. And under 6C, you say that a month's delay will add some $30 million to the total project cost. So have you included this in the $70 million? And how do you come up with the figure $760 million? Is it the large coast responsibility? Is it because we didn't approve you on the date you expected? That's why you have lost $760 million. Can you explain to us more clearly? Now we are talking about two projects. One is 19 GB, the other 13 GB. We have said that with a month's delay, the cost will go up. One is $30 million, the other is $40 million. So if you add them together, it's $70 million. And up to now, we have lost $760 million. That's because early last year, we already went to the PWSC. Well, first of all, we went to the panel, and then we went to PWSC. We hope that in the middle of the year, the PWSC could approve the funding. However, because of the backlog, we went to the PWSC only in the early part of this year, but it was vetoed. Well, can you ask your question in the next round? Next round, please. Ms. Chair, just now he asked you a question. Do you want to answer him in writing? I have the reference information. For the 97 project, the FC number FCR 9697110 is open documents. As for 2000, the paper number is FCR 2000 to 2001, paper number 6. In the paper, it was explained why the PWSC, the ESC did not approve the funding, but the government still needed to submit the papers to the FC. I'm sorry, the speaker is off mic. We'll try our best to find it. The clock is very busy. I don't think this is urgent. If you want to argue, Mr. Chen Chi-chin is off mic. I'll ask our clerk to find it, but you have to understand that she has her hands full. Mr. Leung Yiu-chung, 5 minutes. Chairman, just now some members criticized the government. They want to turn the electrical into a rubber stand. Now they have bypassed the PWSC and they are submitting the application to the FC directly. Now, of course, if you have secured enough votes, you can force this on us. But this is an insult. Now, as long as you have enough votes, you can do whatever you want. This kind of administration is really disgusting. It doesn't mean that you win. This will damage your popularity. Don't think you can just force this on us. Now the price keeps on increasing. The government officials try to explain to us one of the reasons is that the labor cost has gone up, and some other people criticize that because we are delaying the approval, so that's why the labor cost has gone up. Yes, that may be one of the reasons, but many members of the public are also criticizing that because you are carrying out too many projects, so that's why there's a shortage of manpower. Has the government assessed this? Are you really launching too many projects? So that's why the labor cost has gone up. If that is the case, how are you going to resolve this problem? If there are more projects, the labor cost will even go up further. Is this appropriate? So please explain to us. And secondly, I hope the government can explain to me. Or for tendering exercise, after a contractor is awarded a contract, he should be responsible for all the costs. Now, if the tendering price is $10,000, then if you have exceeded your budget, then if the contractor has exceeded his budget, he should be held responsible. He should not ask the government to pay. If he quoted a wrong figure, it should not be the government's responsibilities. So how come the public has to pay for all this cost overrun? It happened to the XRL already. And now we have to worry about this project. There will be constant cost overrun. How come the contractor does not underwrite? He decided on the tender price. How come he should not be held responsible? Well, these questions have been asked and answered already. Permanent Secretary. Well, now we have about $200 billion worth of projects each year. And when it's compared with the new airport project, it's about 90%. There is a shortage of skilled workers. We have been talking to the Construction Industry Council. We hope that we can recruit more young people. As for project contracts, as to who should shoulder the responsibility of cost overrun, it depends on what is written in the contract. If you ask the contractor to shoulder all the responsibilities, then he would increase the contract price significantly. I don't think that is good for the government. Well, we all know that construction costs are going up, and you are telling us that there are not too many projects. I cannot accept that. There is a shortage of construction workers. That is a fact. But the reason is because there are too many projects. You cannot deny this fact. So how come you don't carry out government projects in phases? Assembly now, 3 minutes. Chairman, I want to ask about the economic benefits. In the paper, FCR 2015, 16, 11, Annex 2. Just on the last page of the paper. It says that in 2030, the BCP will be fully used. Wow, you're really forward-looking. But in Hong Kong, we already see a lot of congestions, but these BCPs will only be fully used by 2030. You are saying that from Shenzhen, Hong Kong to Taipo, you would save 20 minutes. And this would greatly facilitate and will greatly benefit Hong Kong. Well, this paper was issued on the 9th of January, and at that time you said that is about $30 billion. And the economic benefits is $60 billion. But how did you come up with that calculation? Look at footnote 1. How did you come up with that figure? You look at vehicle operation costs and time saved for travelers over a 32-year period. That is from 2018 to 2050. I think by that time we don't have one country, two systems. And the total amount is $50 billion at 2010 prices. How does the FC look at such figures? These are such rough figures, and you're already telling us it's $50 billion. This is the way you tell the electrical, okay, you save the traveling time by 20 minutes. And then you're telling us this is the economic benefits for Hong Kong. Are you joking? Yes. For our calculation, is an established way of calculation concerning transport infrastructure. So we are looking at time saved for travelers and savings in vehicle operation cost. We just haven't given you the other details. I'll ask Mr. Cheng to answer. Yes, please be succinct. Now, for any road projects, we have to calculate economic benefits like this. Now, if it saves vehicle time, then it will save on gas and save on time traveling. So this would mean productivity, and it can be turned into economic benefits. We have established models. We would be looking at time saved for travelers and the savings in vehicle operation costs, and then we will calculate accordingly. Mr. Leung Kwok-hong, for this 5 tunnels and 1 bridge, the traffic is very congested. So the traffic, how about the traffic congestions? You do not calculate the loss incurred, and now you're inviting more people to come to Hong Kong, and there will be more traffic congestion. Are you stupid or what? I haven't heard that there would be a place that would not take care of its traffic congestions. Have you calculated? Because now you the government does not take back all the tunnels and bridges. So that's why there is so much traffic congestion. Why do people want to use the Hong Kong Cross Harbour Tunnel? Because it's cheaper. And for the Western Harbour Crossing, it's expensive. So that's why people don't use it. It seems that the reasons are always on your side. Well, if you talk about Shenzhen, you always want to invite the people to come. Those people, well, now we have 60 million visitors from the mainland. How many of them are really tourists? Would the time saved be spent more meaningfully? Why don't you buy all the sun-kissed oranges in the world and let us eat them all in Hong Kong? Are you crazy or what? And for the XRL, China is now talking about one route, one belt. They want to go global, and now you're still trying to connect to the mainland. They are talking about establishing an Asian infrastructure investment bank. They are going global now. Oh, why do you want to have this project? It's because Shenzhen has such a plan, so you have to follow the plan. Even though it's a difficult project, you still have to do it. If we take the lead, then of course we would not implement such a project because there are ground problems.
What? They didn't have any problem because they conducted a site investigation and we followed. We are not stupid. Mr. Lee Chuk-yan, 3 minutes, please. Third round. Chairman. First of all, Low-I Kwok said an engineering firm fired 200 people. I called that company immediately, and they said nothing like that happened. Let's not blame him first, but maybe he never made that call. Maybe he just got the information from the newspaper. Well, perhaps I know more about the trade than him. I just called that company, and they said nothing of that sort happened. So I hope that company clarified with me just now. In terms of price, equating price adjustment with industry inflation, the original estimate was 3.1 billion, and later 3.8 billion dollars were added, and it amounts to over $7 billion. So when you consider the inflation adjustment level, the original was 5.5%, and later it was 6%. Why was there such a big change? Can you tell us about your formula? They never talked about inflation, right? Price. Well, I mean price adjustment. Can you allow him to answer this question first, Permanent Secretary? Mr. Chang. The price adjustment depends on the increase in construction costs, and the increase would be divided over 5 or 6 years. We would anticipate the increase in commodity prices in the next 5 or 6 years, and we calculated that the average inflation rate in the next few years would be 6%. And we would work out the price adjustment required to compensate for the rising construction costs. Since the first estimation in 2012, you already conducted price adjustment. At that time, the base was 5.5%, but later it was 6%. So why would we have an overrun of more than $3 billion. From 2012 to 2021, you anticipated price adjustment, right? The original assumption was 5.5 or 5.5%, right? And later it was 6. It wasn't a big change. So why do we still have such a big overrun? The overall cost has increased, and as such, the factor, the base factor of the price adjustment has increased, and with the 1-year delay, the prices have also gone up. Mr. Leung Yu-chung, second round, 4 minutes, please. They did not address the question on manpower. And for the contracts, they said there are 2 types of contracts. The first type is that if contractors have to bear all the risks, the prices will be very high, and they don't recommend this approach. But when you think about the XRL projects, they have come back time and again for extra funds. And at the end, we have to pay the price instead of the contractors. And so they would try to delay every project because we would be the ones who have to pay the price. And under these circumstances, why don't you take a more ambitious approach or risky approach and ask the contractors to shoulder the risk? These are huge projects. When you think about your own estimates, they have changed drastically over time. And if the contractors take their time and go slow, we have to shoulder the losses. We are not talking about small figures. Why don't you use another mode of tendering? Permanent Secretary, under the contracts, we have to look at the specific clauses. Sometimes the contractor has to bear the risk. Sometimes it's shared between the 2 of us. My name is Leung Yu-chung. Sorry, Mr. Leung. I'd like to assure you that we have a team of more than 300 people at the construction sites to monitor all those projects and the contracts. We have already seen the lesson with the XLL projects. We already saw a bad example. The problem has worsened, and they kept coming back for funds. So what about for this project? You have the XRL project also have hundreds of people monitoring the project. They are not sleeping. So are you saying that you have people who monitor the project, but they don't have it with the XRL? Is that what you mean? The increase in engineering costs was mainly due to an underestimation of construction costs before. My question was, how can you promise not to come back for extra funds in the future? You said you have a lot of people monitoring the project. Can you promise that they won't have any budget overruns? I will repeat myself. We have a 300-person team monitoring the project. So in this case, why is the XRL project facing an overrun? Does it mean they don't have enough people facing the supervising the project? I think we should stick with this project. Why can't he make any guarantees? Are you saying that the project managers with XLL didn't do their job? Is that what you mean? No, that's not what he said. But is that what he really meant? I have no information on hand on the reasons why the XRL project has to come back for more funds. So how can you promise not to come back for extra funds? Mr. Lee Chuk-yan. 4th round, 2 minutes, please. Chairman, I think the crux of the issue is why do we have cost overruns? I don't agree with the argument of bunching effects of projects, and the reality is that the prices go up because of high demand, and this is a simple supply and demand phenomenon. So what are the options we have now? I think one option is to reject the funding application, and we can wait until the prices come down to a reasonable level. Well, I'm sure prices will go down because a lot of projects have been wrapped up or about to finish. Some projects have been approved by the PWSC, but they're not as big as projects like the Lintang BCP or XLL. I think all the most of the problematic projects have something to do with tunnels. I think if you put your resources in special facilities or special schools and so on, we'll be really supportive. But for this project, we are looking at 2017 or beyond. If, according to what Loai Kwok said, it's the end of the world if we cannot have it done. I'm sure the construction prices will come down. But if we can lower the construction costs annually from 200 billion to 100 billion, I think the upper limit is $200 billion, right? That's your upper cap. That's your ultimate cost, right? Mr. Alan Leung. Third round, 3 minutes, please. Chairman. A lot of members have mentioned the XLL project, and you might find it irrelevant, but we have learned a very painful lesson from XLL, and we know that if we don't play the role of gatekeeper well, and if they try to force their proposals through, then we will have very bad consequences. Today we are talking about the Lintang BCP, and next time we might be dealing with the third runway project. If the original estimate was 16.3 billion and now it's 25 billion, and an extra 870 million was required, there must be some problems with the risk assessment and financial estimation. I raised questions on 2 papers. One is the 2020 Hong Kong planning blueprint, and the other document, the initial planning report on the Lintang BCP. I'm not even sure whether Hong Kong people know where this is located. It's located in Man Kam To and Man Kam Road and Shuttlecock. When we look at these figures, the traffic throughput between Hong Kong and Shenzhen is actually decreasing every year. According to the report published in September 2008, we feel like we are being planned, so to speak. So we can see that this boundary control point is not intended for the people of Hong Kong, but now you've already started, and does it mean we have to allow you to do whatever it takes to reach the finish line? You have spent 30 billion in the West Kowloon XRL terminal, and now you fail to overcome the geo-clearance arrangement. So I think this is not logical. Did the government ever conduct any studies? If we are to stop or suspend this project, how much of the cost can be recovered into more useful channels? As I mentioned, we granted 12.3 billion worth of contracts. It's used in the public transport interchange as well as a main connecting road. And the connecting road is intended to the BCP, so if this is rejected, we cannot put these facilities into other uses. Mr. Albert Ho, according to the paper, you have to wait until 2030 before the facility can be fully utilized. You might be too optimistic. When you look at the western passage in Shenzhen Bay, it's not being used much right now, so I'm not sure whether your estimation is accurate. You're often optimistic, but yet we still have to wait until 2030. So even if this project is necessary, it's not very urgent. You have a lot of projects at the moment. We have a lot of infrastructure projects coming up, and there's a high demand on manpower. Is it really that a lot of people are out of jobs? It doesn't seem so. If we slow down this project or even suspend it for a while, let's see how things develop in the future. Will we actually be able to save some construction costs? But right now, with so many projects coming up, then contractors have to do risk assessment. You have not done a very good job in site investigation. Should you conduct more extensive site investigation before opening tenders? So at the end, you might be able to save some money or pay a more reasonable price. The site investigation works have all completed, and for the $14 billion, works have started in the tunnels. If we are to suspend it, well, I've already talked about the shortfalls. There's no guarantee that the construction costs will drop for Ting Kau Bridge and the Songkalis Island Bridge, and they were commissioned in 1999 and 2004, and they were relatively small projects and rather less challenging. And for the first project, the cost was 1.7 billion, and for the second project it was $2.7 billion. So construction costs don't necessarily fall with time. Mr. Michael Tian, second round, 4 minutes, please. I mentioned earlier that the dilemma we face today is to do with the tendering process and the approval process in LegCo. Are we going to face this issue every time? It's very tiring. You said that you would try to launch tender exercises before coming to LegCo, but you cannot possibly use this approach for every single work or contract, right? I think our strategy is to look at the specific needs of each project. For very urgent works, we might open tenders first. Let me be frank, if you will not review this approach, if you only continue to rely on internal estimations and end up with cost overruns of 70, 80%, or even 100%, I might not be so supportive next time. Let me just make it very clear. I think this is unbelievable. unless you have very specific technical reasons, you should always open tenders first. And in 2014, the throughput at Shenzhen Bay is 100,000 people, and in 2004 the figure was only 40,000 people, so was only 20,000. So in other words, the increase was 80%, and which translates to 10,000 people per year. So there is huge demand for passengers and vehicles, and towards the east we don't have any boundary control point, and the Liantang BCP can play that role. You said you mentioned figures like 17,000, 30,000, 5,000. Let's suppose it's 17,000. Taking reference to the Shenzhen Bay figures, in 2018 you should have 17,000 people, but by 2030, by projection, the figure should reach 150,000 people. If we really have so many people, then this project is worth doing. And how did you actually come up with your estimations? Perhaps Mr. Chang can explain it. In terms of passenger and vehicles, I'm just referring to passengers. We adopted a scientific quadruple phase model. We would look at the routes, choice of transportation, etc. Why did Shenzhen Bay see an increase of 80,000 people, but you only project an increase of 13,000 passengers over 12 years? I think it doesn't make sense. I see great demands. Why is your estimation so grim? When we come up with estimations, we have to base our formulas on economic models. I suggest you to revise your models in that case.
係啊，唔該主席。Mr. Ho, second round 4 minutes. Please don't think that as you've already got the hair wet, you should as well do the shampooing. But what if you've used bleach instead of shampoos? Does it mean that you have to continue to wash your hair? And so a wrong choice was made. And so at some point in time, you have to consider whether you would like to continue with this course of action or whether we should stop the course of action and do something else. Now, say, for example, at the XRL, there will be a consultancy study on the an underground shopping mall. So, in fact, we should just turn the underground tunnel at WKCD into a shopping mall. But some of our members are very innovative. They're of the view that that underground space, should be used as a columbarium. That's really a very innovative idea. You want to do something, you disregard the cause, you brush aside the difficulties, and you still want to continue with the project, and the price to be paid may be very, very high. Let's go back to the Longshan Tunnel. So it will have to encroach on private land, and then after site investigations, it is discovered that the soil conditions are extremely difficult. Now, in fact, we used to think that the tunneling option was the cheapest, but now it seems that the tunnel option is very expensive. So is it that you should acquire land for the construction of a highway or an elevated highway? So will that be cheaper than building a tunnel? And then for the Longshan Tunnel, as the works are so complicated, then can you compare the cost of this tunnel with the cost of other tunnels? And I think you should also tell us how much the cost will be if you acquire land and build a highway. You can't tell us that, yes, there are a lot of difficulties, the ground conditions are extremely difficult, but we still want to go ahead. We don't want to be thrown into a bottomless pit. So why is it that at this stage you are still not considering alternative options? In fact, the alignment was finalized after detailed study. Mr. Chen can supplement. When we look at the alignment, we have to look at a number of factors: the topography, the geography, and then we have to look at whether vehicular flow will be smooth. We have to look at impact on the residents, environmental implications. So we have to consider all these factors, and then we'll have to come up with the final decision. But then when you decided on the alignment, you did not know that the ground conditions were so difficult in Longshan. But now you know, and so why can't you have alternative arrangements? Now, in fact, we have reviewed the alignment and we still think that this alignment is the best one. Mr. Chen Chi-chun, third round, 3 minutes. Chairman, you only give members 2 minutes for the fourth round. I cannot agree with you because we are having a joint debate of 2 papers. Now, in the first round, I asked Professor Chen a question. In the second round, I asked a question about cost overrun, and the answer was vague. And I have got a lot of details to ask, and I don't know how I can do that in within 2 minutes. But then I want to say that in the fifth round, you're going to get only 1 minute. I've already made that decision. All right. $760 million. So I want to know, according to your, why have you come up with 760 million? When did you expect FC to be giving you the funding? In May 2014, we thought that the supplementary provision sought would be 8.2 billion. But after a year, we need to ask for an extra $700 million. Mr. Chen, so May 2014, you thought that you would get the funding on that day. And so you are putting the blame on LegCo. So you are telling us, are you saying that you need the extra 700 million because we did not give you the funding approval in May 2014, but that you blame yourself for not having been able to convince us to approve the funding, and that you expect that after a week or two, after the submission of your proposal, the LegCo would definitely give you the green light? Permanent Secretary. In fact, we have no intention to put the blame on anyone. But I want to know, they want to know when you started counting the extra amount. May last year. So today it's $8.7 billion. And if is it that if we do not give funding approval within this month, then you'll need another 700 million. But then we have 2 projects, 19 GB and 13 GB. But then we are having a joint discussion of the 2 papers, and I'm very confused. Permanent Secretary. So we are discussing both papers at the same time. And if both papers are approved, then we'll not need to ask for the $70 million. What do you mean? $70 million 1 month, for 1 month, starting from today. 760 million as of today, Chairman. So first paper, 8.7 billion. But was it 8.4 billion in May 2014? Please queue up again. Michael Tian. How many minutes, Chairman? 3. Chairman, Shenzhen Bay, 100,000 people every day. Many members of the public have asked me this question. On the mainland side, there is a car park with 2,000 parking spaces, so people can drive there to the BCF, and then they can cross the boundary. But then on our side, there is not even a single car park, and all people have to take public transport. And so I want to say that for Shenzhen Bay, in fact, the flow should have been more than 100,000. So if you provide a car park, then you may have 130 to 140,000 travelers. Liantang Hengyun Wai, only 400 parking spaces. That's definitely not enough. This BCF is going to be the first complete BCF. So people can drive there. And then on the mainland side, there is railway connection as well. For the Shenzhen Bay crossing, on the mainland side, there is a car park with 2,000 to 3,000 parking spaces. I want to say that this is going to give us a very bright future. I think you have underestimated the potential. So my first question is this. So we're going to provide 400 parking spaces, and if these are taken up very quickly every day, then will you expand the car park so that we can have over 1,000 or even 2,000 parking spaces? Permanent Secretary, Chairman, the 400 are for members of the public to park their vehicles, and when the BCF is commissioned, will monitor the flow of people and vehicles. But then, is it that you have sites available there for an expanded car park? I don't have the information here, so I hope that you can tell me whether there is such a site next time, or else I'll find it difficult to cast my vote. So many have said that they need parking facilities there. Then an increase from 17,000 people to 30,000 over a 12-year period. I don't know which department was responsible for doing the estimate. I think your computer modeling is illogical. So next time, please tell us whether it should be 17,000. Time's up. Next week we'll have 2 sessions to discuss these 2 papers.